We've watched all the hunting shows and the YouTube videos and all the commercials. Now your backpack is crammed so full of stuff, you're not too sure if your ladder stand will support you and the backpack both being up there. Maybe we need to talk. Okay, what all do you need if you're going deer hunting? Let's face it, give you a gun, a bullet, and a fairly sharp pocket knife, and you can bring a field-dressed deer out of the woods. But there are some other things that'll make it easier and increase your chances of getting that deer. Let's start out with attractants. Things you might do to attract a deer to your location. Let's start out with grunt call, rattling antlers, and though I don't have it here, a doe bleat call. I'm just using a regular, and to be honest with you, even these aren't my rattling antlers. I've picked up enough sheds over the years. Every one of my deer stands has got a set of rattling antlers hanging in it, so I don't have to carry them around. But whether you have regular antlers, whether you buy the store-bought type or whatever you use, rattling antlers and a grunt call are both used to attract a buck to you. Can you use these items too much? Yes. Can you use them too little? No. If you never used them, you'd still probably get a deer. This can help. Both of these go into one category. There's an old saying in football, in the forward pass. If you throw a pass, 3 things can happen and 2 of them aren't good. It works the same way here too. Let's say I've got a bucky standing over here and I'm going to rattle the antlers and see what happens. 1, I'm going to bring him to me. 2, he's going to take a look my way and say, eh, and just keep on going. Or 3, in case maybe a little buck, he's going to take off and run because he wants nothing to do with what's ever happening over there. And it works with this too, same way. But I've called some real nice bucks in with a grunt call and rattling antlers. So they're worth having. Don't get carried away with them. Probably 90% of my usage is I see a buck in the distance, I want to bring him in closer, I'm going to rattle. What have I got to lose? He's already going the other way. So if he's uninterested or runs off, he wasn't coming my way anyway. I got a good chance maybe to bring him in, get a shot, or at least look to see if I want to. Same thing works for the grunt call. Using them in combination works also. Use them sparingly, and that should help increase your odds a little bit anyway. The doe bleat call, same way, you can use that in combination with the grunt call. That'll help sometimes. That's probably one I don't use as much. But then again, I don't use these as much as other people do. So we just go, everybody's got the thing you want to do and how much you want to use it. Try them, don't overuse them. Okay, let's talk about scents. Scents, cover scents, attractants. I ain't got any. Sorry, I'm old school. I'm an old man. When I started deer hunting, none of this stuff had been invented. And while I use some of the things, a lot of things I don't. Cover scents I'm not real big in, but here's my deal. If you feel more confident using them, use them. By all means, use them. The only thing I'm going to get into on it is one part of that. Boots, the boots you wear. Rubber boots. No leather, use rubber. I'll guarantee you, and I've had countless ways I've seen it happen, a deer can walk right past where a guy walked with rubber boots, and that deer comes up where the man was with leather boots, he'll stop dead in his tracks. So for me, I try to do 2 things. 2 things are important to me when it comes to scent. I wear rubber boots, and I stay downwind. And as long as you wear rubber boots and stay downwind, you're covered. You've got it covered. So I don't really get into the scents and the cover scents and all that stuff. But again, by all means, if you feel better using them, use them. Okay, what else we got in the bag? Fluid bottle. Under no circumstances, if your buddy offers you a drink from your fluid bottle, do you take it? No. This is not to be emptied. This is to be filled. So never, ever, ever take a drink out of anybody's fluid bottle. And as you're leaving the deer stand with a partially full or full fluid bottle, do not dump it on the ground right next to the base of your stand. You always go to your buddy's stand and you put it on the ground by his stand. Just don't tell him you're doing that. While we're on bottles, water bottle. It is nice to have something long to have a drink. Maybe a small snack, something you can eat. If you're going to be up in the stand for a few hours, it's nice to be able to get a drink. Here's what I don't like about water bottles. Who invented these things? You know what this is good for? Slip up behind a guy that's out in the lake ice fishing. That's what that's good for. Otherwise, no. So what I do, you can buy bottles, buy something, test them out, make sure if they're making noise. I go buy a milk bottle and I drink the milk out of it or give it to somebody else, and I fill that up with water and I put it in my fridge, and this is what I take. This one doesn't make any noise. So water bottle's good, but I would try to find something that doesn't make some noise, but take a little water with you. And then while we're on to the subject of something to drink and something to get rid of it, I'm not sure what the wild bear does, but I ain't using leaves, okay? So that's in there. We got that too. Binoculars. Nice pair of binoculars is nice. It allows you to see that buck or that's off of this. Is he good enough? Is he one you want? Is he one you want? That deer in the distance, is it a buck? Is it a doe? It's amazing what you see, and in a pair of these, how much better you can tell exactly what you're dealing with out there. So binoculars is something that's worthy to have in your backpack. Okay, flashlights. Can a guy have too many flashlights? I don't know. Let's see, I got there's 1, 2. This is one of those good crank up ones, so just in case the batteries wear out on the other one for your head, one you can hold. A lot of times I don't use them going in, I don't use them coming out, but when you need to track a deer, if you need to field dress a deer or whatever, 2 or 3 flashlights sure they don't take much, you can get them cheap, so have some flashlights on hand. Okay, so what happens if we get a deer? I got one of these little saws. Now, mind you, I've probably cut more tree branches with this than anything else, but it didn't cost a whole lot. I know a lot of guys have to saw for field dressing a deer. I'm not one of those guys. If we have a video later on of field dressing a deer, you'll see what I mean. But hey, they don't cost much. They're little. They're nice to have in your backpack, just to have one along. Your knife. This is a little more extensive than you think. This one is just, this knife, I don't know, I've probably had this 15, 20 years or more. Got it through where I work. The biggest thing about this, make it sharp. Just be sure it's sharp. A dull knife cuts you, a sharp knife doesn't. So make sure you get a sharp one. Something like, it doesn't have to look like this, it can be but a small knife. If you're a rabbit hunter or you've hunted squirrels and you've cleaned some rabbits and you've cleaned some squirrels, and this is the kind of knife you're using for something like that, now that you're going deer hunting doesn't mean you now need a knife proportionately larger because you're going after something bigger. You don't need one of those huge knives. It's just, this is fine, something small. Like I said, you could do it with a pocket knife. So don't get carried away on the knives. And now, while we're on the subject of knives, it's your first time out. You're gonna be field dressing your first deer. You're a little worried about that, and you got a buddy and he hunts, and you kind of think, what if I just tell him I leave my knife at home and I get him to field dress my deer for me? That'd probably work. That's not gonna work. And on rare occasions, it might. But if you're hunting with somebody that's spent any time deer hunting, he's heard most of them. So, and here's the problem. The usual response is going to be, let me loan you mine. But I'll guarantee you, he's not giving you his good one. He's got a spare knife down in there that wouldn't cut butter on a 90-degree day, and that's the one he's going to give you. So, no. If you try that one and it doesn't work, and he hands you that knife, then you go back to your backpack and say, hang on a second, I gotta get my gloves. I gotta get my gloves. And when you do that, it's, oh, wait a minute, there's my knife. It was in there. Never mind, I'm covered. See, now you took care of that one. So I'm not saying that won't work. Deer hunters try it all the time. I'll give you an example. Last week, I got an email from Bob. Said I was out working in the garage and my thumb got too close to the blade on the table saw. I didn't lose anything, but boy, I left a good blood trail from the garage all the way to the house. Most people would look at that and they'd say, their response would be, boy, accidents happen and you are real lucky you didn't lose part of your thumb having an accident like that. My first response was, that SOB's trying to get out of gutting his deer. He's going to come up with a bandaged thumb and want me to gut his deer for him. Now, that in itself didn't piss me off, but the fact that I didn't think of it first is what bothered me. I mean, that's when you're dealing with deer hunters. Now, and I got to give you one example. A few years ago, we hunted in the area, and we had a guy that never hunted before. This could be his first deer. We kind of set him off in a corner in one spot, and late in the evening, we heard a shot in his way just after sundown sometime. So we all went over to check, and there he was, and he had a decent doe. And nice first deer. You know, every deer you get, first deer is great no matter which one you get. And he was real proud, and he should be. So we took all the appropriate amount of pictures you take of the first deer. But I got to looking at my watch, and I thought, okay, we need to kind of move this thing along. There's a pretty good football game coming on in a little bit, and I got a big crock pot full of beef stew and a couple cold beers in the fridge waiting for me. I'd kind of like to get home. So I said, well, let's get this thing field dressed. He goes, yeah, great. So he gets his backpack, and he actually comes out, and he brought out a knife that would make Jim Bowie and Crocodile Dundee proud. I mean, 2 inches longer, and it had been a machete. And well, you know what I thought, but I'm okay. And I said, hey, that's a nice knife you got there. And he goes, yeah. Matter of fact, he says, I even brought my butt out tool. I'm not saying you shouldn't use those, but I'll tell you, in 5 minutes, I had the man's deer gutted in his truck, and I was heading home to get some stew. Now, it may be that he got me, but I'll tell you what, the next week when we heard a shot in that direction, we all went the other way. So what you might get by with once, you ain't getting by with twice. I'll guarantee you that. Okay, we've covered about everything you'd use. You hit up your ladder stand, whether it's morning, evening, archery, rifle, black powder, whatever you're hunting. Those are probably some of the basics that'll get you by. All right, I think that's about it. Go out, get yourself a deer, and hopefully we'll do something down the line here in a couple more videos yet. If we got something we can show you as far as field dressing a deer or cutting up a deer, if something like that's going to interest you too. Thanks for sticking with me.